Thank you very much. Yes, my first visit to Australia. I'd like to thank the National Library for making this possible. I'll talk about authorities, just a little bit about, in general, things about authorities, but then mostly talk about work that my group's been doing at OCLC. The first slide here, the logo around the side really is supposed to represent the machine that we've been doing a lot of the work on. We're doing a lot of work, especially in batch processing now, on what you would have been supercomputers just a few years ago. They're a Beowulf cluster, Linux cluster. And we do these for batch, and also the searching that goes on at OCLC, the full text searching, is done on very similar machines. So first, a little justification. I think this is probably, people appreciate authorities here, but I think it's worth spending a little bit of time wondering, why are authorities still important? So here's a search for Thomas Hickey. This is against worldcat.org. Now, the worldcat.org has both a cataloging database of about 120 million records, but it has another 50 or 60 million article records. And of course, the article records have less authority control, or if you can call it, they don't have authority control. But here's a search that I get about 527 if I do a search for Thomas Hickey. If I do a search for Thomas Butler Hickey, I get about 58, which is much reduced, but I think they're all me, which is nice. Do a Thomas B Hickey somewhere in the middle, and I think again probably most of these are me. There might be somebody that isn't, but you can even within a fairly well-controlled system, people come up in different ways. Now, one thing that our library systems can do that is really the search, the harvesters of general web material can't do, is list the names that they have in the catalog. And here I am, Thomas B and Thomas Butler. Maybe a few of these Thomas Hickeys are me, but it's nice to be able to do that. So here's someone that has more problems than I have. Tchaikovsky, of course, I think probably the Cyrillic is pretty close to what he started at, although he's old enough so that, Cyrillic has changed a lot, when the Soviets changed it quite a bit. So I'm not even sure that this would be the original Cyrillic for him. But here are the NACO, so this is the LC NACO, the German and the French. These are the three authority files we have in the virtual international authority file that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. And you can see three quite different names, although at least the Germans and the French agree on the transliteration of the surname. And everybody agrees on the dates, which is nice there. So here's even more ways to say Tchaikovsky, and actually I think the one on the top is a new one. I just came up with this one, but it's sort of a variation on a theme, and it keeps going from there. So wouldn't it be nice if you could use any of these and actually get what you wanted, or if you were if you were in Russia or in China, that you could use the local form of the name, or in Germany for that matter. So here's the general ideas about authorities that I promised here. I think that authorities that we're used to really has been concentrated, I don't think you can say on books, but certainly on library material, the library material, published library material that's been bought and collected by libraries. I think we're going to see that expanded. We certainly would like it to reach into the archival material, unpublished material, article level. I think would be very nice to have that into the general scheme of things. I think we're going to see much more machine-generated authorities coming out of different things, or at least machine-assisted input into authority files. And we think that more than just authority librarians, too, need to be involved in this. We need to involve the maybe the people themselves that are being described, other information professionals, librarians in general would fall into that, the researchers, enthusiasts such as genealogical researchers, that sort of thing. And of course, the files themselves, once we've got them built, will be available in lots of different ways. You'll be able to look at them different ways. There'll be more context material. We'll bring in a lot more information about that, and I think you'll see some of that in the WorldCat Identities project I'll talk about. Better navigation within the files, and just ways that that authority files can be used in general mashups and showing information from a lot of different sources. I think authorities should be in that. And really, the more we think about authorities, the more important they seem to us. And I think authorities really just touch everything, or at least they have the potential of doing so. Oh. So what's going on here? Am I going backwards? Searching. I'm going backwards. That was left mouse key. Oh, there we go. Use this. Sorry. So here's what the rest of my talk. I'm going to talk a little bit about controlling names in WorldCat, which is a project that we've been doing the last 6 months or so. Then about the Virtual International Authority file, and WorldCat Identities, which I think is probably the most fun of the whole thing. First, controlling names in WorldCat. In the past, although for years now you've been able to actually link a heading for a person to the LC NACO authority file within WorldCat. But that had to be done pretty much manually. We weren't doing them automatically. For the WorldCat identities that I'm going to show later, we had to go through the whole catalog and link as many of those as we could, because we wanted to bring together as many variant forms of the name that are in WorldCat, and we wanted to use the LCCNs when we wanted standard identifiers for the names when we could find them. So we took the copy of WorldCat every 3 months or so in research. We pull a copy of WorldCat, and we went through all the names in it and really very aggressively tried to match them to the LC file, but we'd also match them to the German and the French files if we could. And that seemed to work pretty well. I think we were probably a little over-aggressive, and we pulled some names together that maybe shouldn't have. But we wanted to at least to get the links that we'd done correctly into WorldCat itself, so that we didn't have to do this every time, and that WorldCat could benefit from this. But how to do that? Typically, we'd start a project. It'd have to be some developers would get into the internals of WorldCat and do that. But I don't really have access to that, and the developers seem to have a lot of other things that they were already slated to do. So I wrote a little program that pretended it was a connection client. Connection is the standard cataloging module for WorldCat. And so the program logs in, searches for records, finds whether the heading is changed or not from a file that I've generated. Then, if it hasn't, if everything looks okay, inserts the authorized form into the record, and actually does the link and replaces the record into the database. Now, this is the same sort of thing that anyone with a cataloging authorization could do, and certainly if they have the rights, an enhanced authorization could do it to virtually any record.